Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, have it right handy, and let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. Thanks for being here, by the way. I really enjoy drawing with you. When you're starting out your drawing, you got to figure out where everything goes. And last time we were talking about composition. This would be a diagonal composition because of how the horse is. And you want to kind of figure out how big you want to put it and where you want to put it. A good composition touches or comes close to touching 3 of the 4 sides. And so we're going to set our 6B pencil aside. That 6B pencil is your darkest pencil. It's a very soft pencil. We're going to use that towards the end. And we're gonna just do this. This was a number 2 pencil, okay, or an HB pencil. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out where that horse goes. So the first thing is you say, well, I want the head kind of up here in the corner. It needs to be fairly large. Maybe I just want it to go this high. And so you're setting yourself a little parameter. Remember when you're drawing to draw with your pencil like this. But this is how you start it all out. You draw better with your elbow and your shoulder than you do with your wrist. And so you kind of lock your wrist a little bit. I mean, you do have a little bit of movement, but you keep it kind of locked, and you just kind of, and we want to do simple shapes. Everything's very simple. Then you can come down and say, well, the rear end of the horse, I want to give my horse a little bit of space for a tail. And I like how that tail flips. Maybe I'm going to flip that tail a little bit more. So maybe I want its rump about down in there somewhere. So what that does is now it sets the size that you need it to go. And so the body of the horse is about like this. So you can come in with this kind of a bean shape, if you will. And that's not perfect. It's just what it is. That's the shape that we want to get it in. Simple shapes, simple shapes. And the head is this kind of light bulb shape. It's going to come in here. Or you could just do this kind of obelisk shape kind of thing. And then look at the space in between the nose and the chest. And you say, well, maybe I need to move it over a little bit. Or you can increase your chest a little bit. There's its neck. There is a little shadow that comes down his neck. So that little triangle there is a shadow. It's a little hard to pick out. And then if that's his head, his leg is almost level with the nose. So if that's his nose and you come down here, that leg is just about level with it. And so you can look at the negative space between the nose and the leg. There's the little joint of the front leg there. It's going to come almost straight down. And again, you can like pick up simple shapes. You can say, well, here's the foot over here, or the hoof. And we're not going into any details really. Just simple shapes. Try to keep it as simple as you can. And that one is a little too long. I have to make it a little shorter. So I'm going to just pick that up and shorten it out a little bit. Don't erase, okay? Right now, there's no reason to erase. You're going to need that graphite anyway. So sometime you just kind of want to just keep drawing until you're happy with how it looks. That other leg, if you come straight off the neck down here, that's about where that other leg starts. There's just kind of a triangle right there into a little rectangle that's the joint of the leg. And into the hoof. All that can be easily adjusted. That hind leg, you see one of them back in there that kind of comes down and curves out. The other one kind of curves around there, straight down. And they almost meet on the back there to the bottom. And that tail in the back, I'm going to have it touch the edge and maybe swirl around a little bit. I like that little kind of swirl. You can do what you want to there. And if you wanted to make it a unicorn, you definitely could put a little horn up there. But that's probably one of the last things we do. Then you got to analyze it. Is this about right? Is there something I need to change? Do I need to adjust the curve of the body? Do I need to adjust anything there? Is that head too high? Is it about right? So you just kind of keep going around with the side of your pencil, just adjusting things. And again, wait to erase. If after a while you're like, okay, that's about in the right place, you can erase things that maybe aren't quite right. But we're not worried about edges. We're not worried about lines around things. Those all come later. This kneaded eraser is really just kind of a cleanup tool. You can figure out things like where the nose is going to go. You can maybe darken those in just a little bit. Try to get the shape that they are. And again, don't worry if it's not exactly right. That will come. That ear, if you go straight up from the neck, and where that shadow is on the neck, and you go straight up, that's about where that ear is. And it's just this little kind of a teardrop shape. A little modified, but it's there. And if you wanted to, you could throw in some of that hair as it flips around, but that's not a big deal. That can all come in later too. That eye, if you go straight in between the ears, so like there's a little ear, it's hard to see because of the hair that's up in there. There's one right there, and if you come straight between them and down, that's about where that is. Pretty close. And don't draw the eye, just make a little dark shape. Because that's all going to be, we're going to use that as shadow anyway. So now again, analyze it. Is there something I need to change? Is there something we need to make different, enhance it, broaden it, make it bigger, smaller? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of look at it and say, okay, where are the shadows? Where are those dark shadows? Do I see anything that I can put in there in the dark shadows? So I'm just going to take my pencil and just ever so lightly put in some shadows. Try to keep them the same shape of the shadows you see. That back leg, that off leg, totally in the shadow. And notice too, I'm not really trying to do a real tight edge. That will come. And the more you draw, the more it's going to look like what you want it to. What's most important here, our emphasis area, is probably the horse's head. Most people will look at the head, and if that works out and they're happy with it, then they'll explore the rest of your picture. So spend a little extra time on that head. I'm going to zoom into his head in just a minute and work on the head and get the head just right. Everything else will fall into place. As soon as you're kind of happy with where everything is and you've done a few little shadows and it's not dark, I'm not really pressing. I can't press hard this way. That's one of the reasons we do it like this. It's really hard to press. If you're going to press hard, you got to kind of choke up on your pencil and get way up in there. Then you can press. But back here, you can't press hard. Just let the pencil do its job. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cotton swab. I'm going to start to blend a little bit of stuff. And you can pick up graphite and move it over. You can change it. And that's what you want to do, is use that cotton swab to get those light, soft edges. So you can start wherever you want to start. I always start in the darkest shadows I see. So I can start at the belly. You can start wherever you'd like to start. I'm just going to use my cotton swab to get some of these very light, soft shadows in. I'm also looking at the outside shape of things and trying to make sure that as I blend things, I can bring everything out to about the shape of those edges that I see. So you get this nice kind of a ghost-like image. It's very soft. The edges are very soft. And as soon as you put a little bit of graphite on your pencil or on your cotton swab there, you can blend with it. So I can pick up some of this and move it over here. Some of those soft shadows, I can pull out some graphite and put them down in here. Sometimes it's those soft, subtle shadows that really start making it look interesting. But what's going to make it pop is the contrast, the really dark darks. Also notice that there are times when my edges get lost. I'm not even sure where the end of that leg is or the top of that joint right there. You can just let it get lost. That's okay. So you just take that cotton swab. You're using it to get some of those soft, subtle values, light and dark. Even the hair is so soft that you can just blend those little lines. And when you get enough graphite on there, you can actually take your cotton swab and you can use that to get the hair. You can just flip some little hair in there. Look how soft that hair will be. And oftentimes people are like, no, I've got to use line. Well, that line is going to be hard. And so if you use these light, soft values, shadows. So keep going. If you don't have enough graphite, if your cotton swab starts running out of graphite, just add a little more graphite to the darkest areas. So I can add that graphite in there, and then I can pick it up with my cotton swab, and I can move it. I can change it. Look how fast this goes. It used to be, when I drew, I would spend hours and hours and hours trying to get those soft, subtle values. And I'd use my pencil, and I'd go really soft, and then I'd have to erase the edges. This way, it's done for you. So fast. So I'm just picking up some of these darker values, these darker graphite areas, and I can manipulate it. I can move them. And I'm creating those edges. Even some of those muscle tones. This works great for if you're drawing humans and the muscles and the subtle tones that you have in the flesh tones. This cotton swab works great for that. So far, I've just used my number 2 pencil. Wait till we get to the 6B. That's when it gets fun. So far, this is all done just with that cotton swab on the side of your pencil. You can get some really soft, subtle values with it. Especially here on the back of his leg, you got some really dark shadows, but then you've got some really light, soft shadows and some veins. I'll show you how to do the veins. I used to love to draw muscle people, and the veins were always really hard. Then I came up with this technique, and it's like, oh, now it's easy. You just do a little shadow, you take your kneaded eraser, touch the lights, and whoa, you got a vein. So now when you look at it, you think, okay, are my proportions correct? Is it, where I want everything to go? If it isn't, now's the time to change it. Because all this stuff can be erased. Once we start grinding it into the surface, it's very difficult to erase it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 6B pencil. Remember, the head is the most important part. That's our emphasis area. That's where people are really going to look. So we're going to spend a little extra time on the head. So I'm going to zoom into this head so we can see what's going on there. So I'm just going to start in with the eye. I can see this eye lid now, which I didn't see before. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to pull out the eyelid. I'm just going to start with the eyelid. And just going to shadow in anything that I kind of feel like is dark. Now, I cannot see what's going on inside that eye, but I'm going to assume that there's going to be a little dark area, and you're going to have a little light area too, because you've got reflected light. You just know it's going to happen. So I'm just going to go in and do a little reflected light. I'm going to leave that little edge right there, just a little spot of light in the eye. Even though I can't see it, I think it would make it look a little nicer. And anywhere else you think you need a little darkness, you don't have to press hard. I'm just going to go through, and just any place I feel like I need a little darkness, just put a little darkness in there. A little bit of shading. He's got reflected light along his jaw, and so you can see where the crease of his neck is right there, and right above it is a little reflected light. So I'm just going to leave that, a little reflected light there, a little empty space there. Little wrinkle inside, so you've got shadows inside of shadows. So I'm going to put those darker areas in there, knowing that I can always take those and blend them. So I'm just going to do these little shadows. There's that shadow within that neck area. And all I have to do is go in with my cotton swab and just blend those a bit. The dark shadows become a little less dark, and the lighter shadow becomes a little darker. And so they even out a little bit. But it still gives it that idea of those little wrinkles in the neck. Even though you can hardly see them, it just adds to the texture, adds to the believability of it. I've always felt that horses were difficult to do, so I always avoided them till I had to do them. Because, you know, if you're ever going to do fantasy, there's always horses in fantasy. So when I decided I wanted to do fantasy, then I'm like, oh, now I got to do horses. But that's okay, because I like horses. They are noble creatures. So all I'm doing now is just going through and trying to get all the dark areas of what I see. Trying to keep them about the right size. I know that looks kind of strange. And you're thinking, oh, Mr. Lowe, there's softer stuff in there. But you know, we're going to be blending. So I'm going to take my cotton swab and I'm just going to start blending some of this. And you can pull some of that up, or you can leave it down in there. And it's just going to soften things up. And you kind of choose where to blend, what to do with it. Once you get a little on your cotton swab, use that to get those other little values in there. And again, I really haven't drawn a line around anything, but yet you look at it and you know exactly where the edges are. The last thing you're going to do is take your kneaded eraser and just clean up edges, pull out light. So I'm just pinching my kneaded eraser down to a little point, and you can use that to just add a little bit of light here and there. Here's a little vein that goes down his head. I'm using my kneaded eraser. Just pull out that little vein. Like I say, once we're done with this head, the rest of him is going to go really fast. This part of his head that is very, very light, you can almost leave some of that edge out there. In fact, if you wanted to, you could take your kneaded eraser and just break that edge completely. Everybody knows it's there, but it makes it look nice and light. So don't be afraid to do that every now and then. Afterwards, if you look at it and you think, I need that edge, you can always come back in and add it. if you need it. So the head is just about done. I mean, if you wanted to, you could work on that until it was just photographic tight, but not a big deal. Now what we need to do is the rest of the body. And so you can really come along and say, well, okay, here's his ear. I'm just going to throw in his ear. You just do the dark area, and then we're going to come in and blend it with our cotton swab, and you'll have it. Here's some hair. Just throw in little dark areas where you think the hair is going to be, where it's the darkest. Anything in between, I don't know if I'd worry about it. There's an ear. It's just this little shape, kind of hanging out up there, really. It doesn't. But most of this hair we can do with the cotton swab. I'm just using the side of my pencil because it's easier to blend with. I'm just going to throw in some little light areas that I know I'm going to blend. Here's a shadow. It's just kind of a little wiggly, squiggly side of the edge line there. And just throw in any little dark edges, because the important part's done. And again, don't worry if you break an edge like this leg here, just leave it alone. It's okay. When in doubt, leave it out. Most of this we can do with the cotton swab. So just throw in the darkest areas. And in the main part, the hair part, don't worry about it. It's all light and fluffy anyway. We'll do that with the cotton swab. It's almost a hard edge design where you're just doing some little dark edges, and then the rest of it just, it does it. It takes care of itself. We're going to do the grass and everything with the cotton swab, but there's a little drop shadow right behind him you may want to do with the side of your pencil. And it's just these little shapes, kind of like this, because it's going to be grass. So all you need is just that little darkness that's back there. The rest of it, we'll take care of it. So then I just take my cotton swab and I do exactly what I did with the head. I just go down and pick up some things. Like I say, when you get enough of that graphite on there, use that to get the hair. And it's just little shapes of darkness in between. Just let some of that light kind of just flow through. And that hair will look soft, and you don't want to use line there. You use line, it'll look like spaghetti. And the more graphite you get on your cotton swab, the more you can draw with it. We'll just come back and clean up everything and be all done. When you get down to the bottom, use that cotton swab to create the grass. You can just do little feathered lines with it like this. You just need enough that your viewer says, "Oh, I get it, he's on the grass." You know, you don't need every little blade of grass, just enough. Here's that little drop shadow. And then the tail, you can use that same technique with the tail. Last but not least, clean it up with your kneaded eraser and then sign it. A good place to sign this would be probably right in the front under this hoof, right in there, or you could put it right there under the tail too. Don't go too close to the horse. I'm going to do mine right there. Hope you had fun today. Hope this is something that's going to help your life and enlighten it a little bit, make it a little nicer. Because art makes life better. And I hope you have a lovely day.